Good afternoon. Welcome back. It is Saturday, August 12th, 2023. We have a few birthdays to celebrate today and a few events. No major events today. This was, again, kind of that part of the NASCAR season where there was sometimes a break, sometimes not a break. So, looking at the record books, there were races at Talladega, Watkins Glen, Michigan, several other tracks where they would just bump it up a weekend or back a weekend or whatever. So let's go back to 1973. This was a pretty famous race at Talladega. Dick Brooks wins this race, but this is the race that, two things happened. Sadly, Larry Smith was killed in an early race crash that, from the appearance, from what eyewitnesses said, didn't look bad at all. And when the car got back to the pits, legend has it that the crew was actually preparing the car to get back into the race when they found out later that Larry had passed. But if you look at pictures of the car after the crash, you could see it was a very, very vicious hit. Second thing that happened, this was the race that Bobby Isaac famously retired. Or, I don't want to say retired, but he got out of the car and said a voice or something told him to get out or whatever. This race is on MRN Classics. I recommend you go back and listen to it. There is an interview with Cuckoo Marlin, Sterling's dad, before he was getting in that car, because he did get in the car and finish the race for Bobby Isaac. But there's an interview with Cuckoo Marlin. It's very interesting to listen to Cuckoo Marlin, and then most of us have heard a Sterling Marlin interview, and listen just how close their cadence and how close they sound like each other. Fast forward to 1990 at Watkins Glen, Ricky Rudd wins. This is kind of right in the middle of that 16, 17-year streak he had of winning at least one race a year. This would be his only win in 1990, and his first of first of 4 wins for Hendrick Motorsports. And not really that. It was a pretty decent race, best I can remember. And I was looking at the stats for this race. 2 ringers, Tommy Kendall and Irv Hare, finished in the top 10 road course ringers. And I believe this was both of their final career top 10s. Cyril Vandermerve made his only Cup Series start relief driving or driving in place of Darrell Waltrip, who was injured at Daytona. With that being said, that was his only start in the 17 car. Greg Sachs would drive most of the other races in the 17 car. Jimmy Horton did drive one, but DW did come back a couple weeks later at Richmond to finish the 1990 season. 2001, Jeff Gordon wins. Watkins Glen, no surprise there. But that made 4 out of the last 5 Watkins Glen races that Jeff had won. In our final event, 2012, Marcus Ambrose wins at Watkins Glen for his second and final career Cup Series wins. So now we're going to move on to birthdays. And we kind of have a hodgepodge of a few birthdays here, and we do have cards for all 4 of them. We'll start back in 1951. Journeyman NASCAR driver. He was an independent driver, came from the West Coast. Didn't make a lot of starts in NASCAR, but he did make some starts sporadically in the mid-80s to the early 90s, and also ran in some ARCA Series races. Mr. Mark Stahl. You can see by his hat there, and you'll see by another close-up of his hat here. He did have some support from Autobell Car Wash. I believe they might have been out of San Diego. I'm not real familiar. But we do have 4 cards there of Mr. Stahl. I didn't want to get out the 88 and 89 Max cards because I kind of have those separately. Then we'll go, fast forward to 1993. A 2-time winner in the Xfinity Series at Daytona, Mr. Ryan Reed. And Ryan, I can't remember if he was type 1 or type 2. I believe he was a type 1 diabetic, perhaps. And he, of course, has support, or did have support, from Lilly Diabetes. Anyone from the area knows Lilly is a big employer here in central Indiana. There's a look at the Roush Mustang. And I was looking for a uniform of his, and there's a Truck Series race that he did run. This is as close to a full body shot, but on his left leg, I believe it was, there was a little bullseye. And the bullseye was for his crew, because they had those, Lilly had those pins, the insulin pins or whatever. And if he ever felt bad during a race, he would come to the pits and they knew where to jab him at. I mean, it's kind of hard to say that, but they knew where to put the pin in his leg because of the bullseye that was embroidered on his uniform. So if you ever go back and watch some of the races, and you'll see on his leg, and I believe it's his left leg, that there is a bullseye on his uniform. Our next birthday, born on this day in 1987. In his cards, he's got rookie cards this year, so I'm excited about that. Mr. Jesse Iwuji. Of course, I believe he is. Is it going to tell us if he's in the Navy or whatever? But I know he is. He is in the Navy, or he isn't. I don't know exactly what he is in, what branch, but I feel like he's in the Navy, and I think he's an officer. But I know his cars have always been a little underfunded. Kyle Weatherman had some good runs in them last year, and Jesse actually had a couple of decent runs himself. I just think he needs a little bit of seat time, and I think a little bit of seat time, a little bit more funding, and I think he would do pretty good. And our final birthday is one of the all-time greats of motorsport. Don't remember him running Formula One, but I know he's running NASCAR. He's running IndyCar, USAC, all the major U.S. close circuit, not drag racing, because I don't want to put them in, or motorcycles, but all the major U.S. motorsports, and has been successful in every single one. Mr. Rufus Parnell, a.k.a. Parnelli Jones. So I've only got a couple cards of him, but he is a legend. So we'll show you the front and back of that. Talking about the turbine. And then we have the English and French all-time great. So I'll go ahead and show you the back of the all-time great. There's his Indy 500 winner, 1963 winner. Of course, he does have two sons, Paige and PJ, who were racers and had success of their own. Paige had a horrible sprint car crash, and I think it was in 1993, thereabouts, and still struggles with his injuries to this day. Kind of not as bad as Shane Meal, but still it was a pretty bad wreck. And PJ, he's had a successful road course career. He did have a few starts in NASCAR, but really wasn't with top teams. He was driving for Melling, kind of in their downfall, and drove for A.J. Foyt and a couple others, but just never got to shine in NASCAR because he didn't have that top-notch ride. Well, anyway, as always, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks again for watching. Make sure you come back tomorrow, where there'll probably be something to rip. But and we'll eventually have a day where we've talked about, we did go to the truck race and ARC race last night, but we'll get a video up soon where we'll talk about our experiences at all those races. So anyway, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.